Hi, it's Carol Wisely with Radio Free Decipher, and it's a week before the Star Wars celebration and about 20 odd days before Episode 1 releases. We're all of us be setting off for Denver sometime next week for the celebration, so next week we'll be finishing the interviewing with Tom and Rolly and pre-recording that so you can listen to that next Friday. But today I'm actually here with Sandy Wible and Tim Ellington from PD, and we are going to be talking about Blaze of Glory. So Tim, where is it? Tell us the stage that it's at.
Well, we've done a lot of work on a lot of the cards, and we're at the review process now, where we're finalizing card text, reviewing gameplay mechanics, and going through lore, that type of stuff, just to get to the point to where the cards are getting in a finished stage.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit later about the process, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are surprised that it's April, and at one point we were talking about doing Blaze of Glory in February, I think, originally, but we've had a lot of things on recently, so I know you guys have been working hard. Sandy, how's it been on Blaze of Glory?
A little long this time, I think, but it's been going really well.
What can you tell us about the set? What kind of flavor does it have?
I feel really good about the flavor. A lot of really cool new battle things. What we call the verbs, the interrupts, the events, those kind of things will really add a lot, I think, to the game.
So, tell me more. I mean, it's probably, I would guess, a month or so away from release? Or maybe a little more than that?
Probably a little more than that, because we have to factor in, once we get done, we have to factor in printing, packaging, shipping, all of the different stages that come in the post-development part of the game. So I would say it's probably more like 8 weeks or so.
Which is a bit early for me to get you guys to tell me everything, but I think our Star Trek fans out there need some information. They've been patiently waiting since Dominion came out. What's in this set for Dominion?
There are things that really bring out some more of the aspects of infiltrating. We introduced just the tip of that in Dominion with the Founders and the Shapeshifters. We're going to have some more cards that you can use to do more things with your infiltrators, make it a little bit easier to try to infiltrate your opponent, and to really bring out some more of the flavor and the treachery and the espionage of the Founders and the Dominion as a whole.
Do you think Dominion will see more play in tournaments after that?
I think so. Like any new affiliation, same with the Borg, the Cardassians and Bajorans, as we introduce the different affiliations, we have to put out the basic structure of it, let it kind of come through in gameplay and tournament play over a period of time, and sort of address the different nuances of it. And so I think we're doing some things in this set that will really bring out a little bit more flavor, a little bit more of the gameplay viability for them. Okay.
This is the first set for a while that hasn't had a new affiliation in it, isn't it? I mean, Dominion had the Dominion, Space Nine had the Bajorans and Cardis, and before that was First Contact. So this must be the first set that is without a new affiliation. So what's its central focus?
The central focus is really battle. We do have a lot of cards. Originally, Blaze of Glory was actually part of the Dominion. We ended up kind of splitting some of it off. So we've got a lot of things for the Jem'Hadar, in particular, since you were asking about the Dominion. But there's a lot for the new battle stuff. Klingons and Romulans will get a lot out of this set. Capturing is also a big theme. We talked about that a little bit in the Newsflash article yesterday.
So tell me about capturing. What can you tell me about that? Or I can see those, no, we're not going to tell you because somebody told you not to, look, coming on your faces.
Well, no, not really. Definitely there's a strong capturing theme to this set. The actual number of capturing related cards is still to be determined as we go through the review process. But we're taking some old cards, like we said in the question and answer yesterday, things like Brainwash, Interrogation, Cardassian Trap, things that have been the typical mainstay for capturing, and we're really going to expand that a lot. There'll be more ways to capture people. There'll be more interesting things to do with them once they're captured. It really, I think, brings a lot of the flair for that out, and really is more of an opponent interaction type thing. You're really going to have an incentive to go out and get your opponent's personnel just do nasty things to them.
So is there something for every affiliation in this set?
Oh yeah. Pretty much all the affiliations will benefit from the miscellaneous battle cards. Not all decks will go out and battle the opponent, but they'll have that capability, and you can also use a lot of the cards for defense against your opponent's battling techniques. So even if you're not planning on going out and doing that, a lot of times that happens anyway. And regardless, we always try to have a mix of personnel, put in a couple people for all the affiliations so that everyone has something to look forward to, a couple of really cool cards that they can use for their favorite affiliation.
And would you say this set is it drawn from multiple properties? Are we seeing Next Gen and Deep Space Nine in there?
Yeah, it's mostly Deep Space Nine. There are a good number of Next Gen cards, a couple of Voyager cards as well, and a couple of First Contact. So at this point, probably most of our products will have a mixture like that.
Mm-hmm. Any plans for anything with the Insurrection yet?
As soon as we can, we're going to do that and add those cards whenever we can fit them in.
Because there was some cool stuff in there for cards.
Yeah, we've kind of been waiting with bated breath to get the Insurrection material from Paramount. And as soon as we get some, of the material that we use for development, time-coded things, that sort, we're definitely going to start putting some Insurrection cards in. We don't have any planned yet, but you never know. That could come at any time.
Okay, well, I've got a note here from Bill, actually, that says that there are a couple of cards that will get a boost, and I think he's actually named them on this note. So you can tell me a little bit about that.
Well, as we try to do with each set, we go back and look at cards, especially from Premier and Alternate Universe and Q Continuum, some of the earlier mainstay sets that maybe don't get as much play as some of the other cards. And we always try to do things that will enhance those cards. So we've got some little secret stuff that will address some cards, such as like Fleet Admiral Shanti, and there was one other card. I'm not sure.
You might also be talking about fixer cards.
Yeah,
kind of things.
And things like the Pi, which is a rare ship that doesn't get a lot of play, but just little things to try to boost those up a little bit. There are some fixer type cards again that we also try to address some gameplay issues, and Sandy, you might have a couple comments about that.
Well, every set there are very strong strategies that evolve in tournament play, and we don't try to kill those strategies, certainly not, but we try to rein them in a little bit so that they're not as overwhelming. A lot of times the player base out there has a huge reaction to particular things. Sometimes it's worse than they think. Sometimes it's not as bad, and as we view it. So, regardless, we try to address those things with cards whenever we can, and that's really what we do with those. Not necessarily fixer cards, but balancer cards. That's the flip side of those. Help old cards that are weak, but we also try to bring back cards that we think are too strong.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was talking to Bill in the corridor the other day, and he said that this has been a challenging set to develop.
A little, I think. For myself, anyway, I came in with First Contact, and so this is the first expansion I've ever worked on that didn't introduce a new affiliation. So it's a little more open. Most of the other sets had a little bit more focus. This is a battle-related set. I mean, Blaze of Glory, intended to bring out the elements of battle and victory, especially with Klingon and Romulan and Dominion flavor. But it didn't have the focus of mechanics for Cardassians and theme-type cards for Bajorans or Borg. So it has been a little bit different, a little bit more difficult to bring things into focus because there's so many different things when you start looking at the different properties and all of the different affiliations of what we can do with those. So, tightening it up has been a little bit of a challenge, I think.
Okay, well, we're all excited about it. There's another card that's mentioned on my notes that I've been gathering that I've heard a lot of people talking about, and that's this card, Ketracel White.
Well, Ketracel White is one of the mainstays of the Dominion Jem'Hadar. Their battle force is dependent upon maintaining a supply of Ketracel White. So there are cards, there's a specific card, I think, in the set that will give them incentive to go out and fight and get a reward in being able to get some Ketracel White in that respect. So I think it will make it a little bit easier for people to see the benefit for playing them and to get some gameplay that they've wanted, and so it's sort of a twofold benefit.
So tell us about Ketracel White, or rather, tell me about Ketracel White, Tim, because this is part of the Dominion. I mean,
what it is it's a card. All the Jem'Hadar are chemically addicted to the substance, and the founders bred them to do that, so that they have these warriors they can send to go and conquer alien races.
I think the
for
Vikings
them.
had something like that as well.
Right, but this is an actual genetic chemical addiction, so that the founders can control this substance, and the Jem'Hadar, can't just leave, and they have to stay part of the Dominion. And in the game, Ketracel White is an equipment card, and the Jem'Hadar pretty much have to have that to go around and function, or else they go berserk, just start attacking anything in sight.
So, okay, well, I'll look forward to seeing that. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the art process. I mean, mostly on Star Trek, but I think we're probably going to touch on Star Wars, because I get so many questions from people who just don't understand how long the process takes sometimes, and why we can't predict to the day, that the development part will take this long, the art part, then the approval part, so we can say months in advance the set's going to be out such and such a day. And we never can do that, and things change. And I know that there have been some hold-ups on the art process with Blaze of Glory. And without really going into why those happened, I just want to explain to the people out there how the process works for Star Trek and how it's different for Star Wars, because one we're dealing with TV medium, one we're dealing with film medium. So, Sandy, why don't you start and describe what happens? First of all, who chooses the images in the first place?
Well, with Star Trek, we've got an incredible amount of material. There are, 7 Next Gen, 7 Deep Space Nine almost now, about 5 Voyager. So we've got 19 episodes of about 19 seasons of about 25 episodes each. Each episode, you cut out the commercials, that's about 45 minutes. So in particular, comparing Trek to Star Wars, it's a very different approach from our PD standpoint in how we go out and get images to use. So for Trek, what we do is we either have a card concept and we go and look for an image, either just having seen the episodes so many times. All of us have seen them, multiples of times each episode. We just go and look for an episode. What we have are a tape for every episode that's time-coded, and it's a copy of the tape that Paramount has over in California. So we go to that episode, find the exact frame we want, and this is a real painstaking process where we go frame by frame and actually pick the exact frame from that episode. And we just make a list of all those. Now, sometimes we have a really cool image, and we actually try to design a card around that, just because it's a real breathtaking image. That's kind of a reverse design, but sometimes we do that. That's a little bit more difficult for us to design the gameplay.
So what do you do when you've picked those frames and time-coded them, What happens next?
Well, once we prepare what we call an image Bible, we'll go through them and we'll look at hours and hours and hours of tapes. We'll get all the time-coded images, and we prepare what we call a Bible, which lists, probably 200, 250 images. Then we sit down and go through a review process internally with Bill and with the art department, and sometimes Warren is involved in that too, to make sure that these are all quality images that we decide we want to use. Then we have to send those out to Paramount, and those are then, Paramount has a company in California that then takes their digital masters and literally pulls a digital image for us. Then they send them back here. And since it's raw footage, the art department then goes in, cleans up the raw footage, cleans up the particular frame that we got, and then we end up putting it into the card form. So when you're dealing with all those different steps, plus in our case with both Trek and Wars, we're dealing with licensed properties. So there are also approval issues for the licensee. Paramount then looks at all of those images and says, well, this image is a good image, these are quality, but sometimes if a particular actor who has approval rights doesn't like the facial expression or something like that, then we can run into problems. So there's just an enormous amount of approval process for the whole image thing. Other card games, that maybe don't use licensed properties don't necessarily have as many restrictions as we do with that. So it does add a little bit of time to our development process.
Yeah, I think I don't know how many actors have approval rights in Star Trek, but it's quite a lot, particularly in Next Gen, isn't it? The likes of Patrick Stewart and Brent Spiner and all of that, they have to see the actual image and approve it. So that can take some time because their schedules and their locations in the world, of course, are varying like all actors do. You can hardly sort of bump into them on the set of whatever latest movie they're doing.
Sure, and I think over the last few years we've gotten pretty good at being able to predict internally what will be approved and what wouldn't be, so we don't lose a lot of time. But we run into situations, especially when they have special guest stars, Vanessa Williams, Whoopi Goldberg, people like that, who aren't necessarily Trek personas, and so getting approval for them sometimes takes a little longer because they're not part of Paramount's in-house group.
Yes, of course.
We could talk for half a day probably on the different issues about approval processes and things like that, but just to give people an idea, it's not just pick an image off of the tape and put it on the card. It's a lot more background than that.
Yeah, I know. And it's different again for Wars. How does it work for Wars?
Well, as I said, Wars is a lot different from the amount of material. Instead of hundreds and hundreds of hours, we've got just 3. Or 6, yeah. So there's a lot different approach there just from selecting the image. For example, we'll go through and the same frame we might use to make 2 or 3 character cards in Star Wars. For example, in the Cantina, there's one section of the film where we probably made 30 cards, and it's a 1-minute section of film. That's totally different from Star Trek, where that probably would never happen. But as far as getting the images goes, we actually have a 70mm film editor here at Decipher where we go through and take the actual, we've got a master copy of the film itself, all 3 films, and we actually go and take a frame from the film, kind of like they sell in the stores. You can get the actual frames of the movies and scan that. And those films are so old, those take a lot more work for our art department as well. Trek is all digital, and so that's all scanning that film cell takes a lot more work from our end. But we don't have to send out to Paramount and get it back, although Lucasfilm has the same kind of approval process, minus the actors. Lucasfilm doesn't have any actor approval.
On the original series, no. And on the classic series, I've no idea if what's going to happen with Episode 1, so we'll wait and see. I don't think there are. And I know Episode 1 is shot on film as well, but of course Lucas has now announced that he's going to do Episode 2 and 3 100% digitally, so that's going to change the whole process, I guess.
Well, Episode 1 actually, even that is going to change a little bit because we're going to do digital pulls kind of like we do for Star Trek. They've got a digital master in California, so we won't actually get a copy of the film here in the house. We'll send away, we'll say, here's the time code we want, and send that off and get that back.
Oh, well, it's going to be exciting.
Oh, yes.
So those master copies, the first generation copies of the original that we've got down there in those huge reels, they must be missing a lot of frames now.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of funny because whenever we pull a frame, art department puts a little blank in there, and the machine, when it rolls around, makes a kerchunk sound. So, for example, when I was talking about the Cantina, it goes through and there's a kerchunk, kerchunk, and then there's a Cantina, chunk, 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 chunk.
So trying to watch it on that machine now is you're going to miss an awful lot, I would guess. Do you guys see The Simpsons last Sunday?
No.
It was Mark Hamill was the guest star.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was funny. It was funny. You never finished Jedi school. So what's next for Trek? Finish off Blaze of Glory?
Yeah, we still have a little bit of development work left with that. We're trying to finish up the basic cards, and we have the new Battle side deck that we're finishing the mechanic for that on too, which I'm excited about.
Oh yeah, me too.
And then we've got some products that are scheduled for us to work on over the summer, and then we've got the rules of acquisition set looming large in the future. So I'm kind of anxious to get to work on that, but we do have a couple of other smaller projects that we're working on too.
I think the introduction of the Ferengi into the game is going to be fascinating because the way that they move and their motivations are so interesting. It's going to add a whole new layer, I think.
It's going to be a lot of fun to design the set. I think it's going to be a big challenge because, sort of like the Borg have to operate differently from other affiliations because of their, single mindset. The Ferengi certainly have a different motivation for what they go about doing things. So there will be some gameplay implementation to try to capture the flavor of the Ferengi and, how they go about trying to win a game, how, bribing an opponent, taking a little skim off the top here and there. So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, you look as if you're relishing the thought, Tim.
Oh, I am.
Okay, well, thanks, guys, for coming and talking to me about Trek. That's going to make a lot of people out there happy who think that we've completely abandoned it in favor of, the other property. And, of course, I know that's not true.
We work on it every day, I promise.
I just want to say to the audience out there a couple of things. Young Jedi, we're probably... I guess 2.5 weeks away from the street date of Young Jedi. It's coming upon us very, very quickly. We haven't announced a date yet, but I think we'll probably be announcing one on Monday or Tuesday of next week. My email box is beginning to fill up on a daily basis now with questions. I don't have time to answer them all. I am going to find somebody internally who's going to become the official Young Jedi answerer soon, because it's way beyond my capacity to answer them. So I'm just going to answer a couple of the ones I get most frequently now over the air, and hopefully somebody will post this on the bulletin board for all those who don't get radio free or real audio. I think we've said enough times now to make it fairly clear that Young Jedi is a new game. It's called the Young Jedi Collectible card game. It's brand new. It's new game mechanics. It does not play with any of our existing games. It's exciting. It's different. You will enjoy it when you get it, I'm sure. But it is a new game. I'm just trying to think what the other question I get most frequently is. People have asked a number of questions. There are some people who think that it's just 140 cards. That's not true. That's the first expansion, Menace of Darth Maul. There was something printed in one of our distributors' publications that tended to suggest that the name of the game was Menace of Darth Maul. That's not true. The game is Young Jedi Collectible Card Game. The first expansion is Menace of Darth Maul, followed by another couple of expansions. I noticed on the Force.net yesterday that one of them was pictured there, so I think it's fairly common knowledge now that the next two are Jedi Council and Battle of Naboo, and coming throughout the year. So if you don't get an answer back from me on Young Jedi immediately, you're just going to have to bear with us on that one. You looking forward to the celebration, guys?
Oh, yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Looking forward to seeing people playing Young Jedi?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to teaching people how to play Young Jedi.
I think it's going to be really great. I have taught a few people in the last week, and it's pretty exciting to see how quickly they pick it up, and yet how engrossing it can be, because hidden within that simple kernel there is some amazing strategy that dawns upon people as they play. I can't wait. I'm excited. And I'm excited about Trek as well. I mean, what do you think that the art style of Blaze of Glory is going to be? Is there a lot of battle imagery in it?
A lot of weapons, a lot of Klingon and Romulan characters. Again, I think we'll probably have around a dozen of each, which is more than we've had in any set since the premiere expansion. And so a lot of red flavor, a lot of green flavor, some stuff for the Dominion, some action, images of people battling. So I think it's going to have a real flavor of some of the conflict that we now see in the Star Trek property. Great. Well, a good one for collectors as well, then. Yes. Good. Well, thanks, guys, for talking to me. I think it's been quite a long program this morning, so I will be catching you again probably just before Blaze of Glory comes out, when we can reveal a lot more. Thanks for being here. You're welcome.